I think it's a really wonderful experience for young kids to live in a different place. I think they do need a sense of home. Like, I know a lot of kids who are grown-ups now who did the expat life, like their parents moved around and they lived in Dubai and then Singapore and then somewhere else. And they feel sort of very disconnected from anywhere in particular, even if they're Australian.
And so what put entrepreneurship into your soul?
I think I always had a little bit of a bug. At university, I set up a window cleaning business. I know that sounds very like old-fashioned, and I did that with a friend.
How did you ask your wife for a date?
Well, I didn't need to.
No, it just happened. G'day and welcome to Global Horizons. I'm your host, Rob Malicki, coming to you today from Ngunnawal country in Canberra, and couldn't be happier to be joined on the podcast today by Mark Pettitt, Managing Director, CEO, legend, founder of Edified, but like just a great guy from around the field for a long time. Great to have you here, mate.
Thanks, Rob. It's very kind.
Well, I want to say thank you as a starting point. In the last couple of years, I've started a new business, and you're one of the people that I reached out to ask for advice. You're very generous with your time and your knowledge. So I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for that.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me. I always love businesses that are starting. It's one of my passions, so I always like to lend a hand.
I'm looking forward to getting to that, but maybe we could start with Russia.
Sure.
Because you've lived in Russia.
Yes.
And yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
So when I was a kid, I read Animal Farm.
Nice.
And there's a long space there. You can either leave it in there, pause for effect. So I read Animal Farm when I was about 7 or 8. And I was pretty fascinated by that. And I just got this image of Russia in my mind that wouldn't go away. When I was about 10 or 11, I was a bit of a nerd. I wrote a letter. I was born in Australia but brought up in New Zealand. I lived in a tiny town. I wrote a letter to the Russian embassy in Wellington. And I said, could you please send me some more information about Russia? I'm probably on some KGB watch list, like possible spy for the future. And they sent me back these kind of photocopied books. It was called Lenin, what Marx has to say about Lenin, what Lenin has to say about Marx, Engels versus whatever. And it was like, that's not what I meant. Like, I thought they would send me some nice pictures of like Russia and what it was like. So I had this kind of fascination in my mind, and I don't know where it came from apart from Animal Farm. And when I was in my 20s, I was just kind of bumming around Europe, and as you do, didn't really particularly have a plan. I read in the newspaper that somebody was looking for English teachers to go to Russia. And I thought, now's my moment.
It was the calling.
Now's my chance. So this was like 95. So it's only just a few years after Perestroika. And I did a weekend training course in how to teach English. And I went to see this guy, and he said, oh, I guess you want to go to Moscow. I was like, no, where else have you got? And his eyes just lit up. He's like, oh my God, I can send someone to some hideous outback. And he said, have you heard of a place called Rostov-on-Don? I said, never heard of it. Would you like to go? I said, yes. So he organized it. And I don't know if anyone knows where Rostov-on-Don is. It won't surprise you to know it's right on the River Don. It's actually excruciatingly close to excruciatingly now, I say, next to the Ukrainian border.
Conflict zone, exactly, yeah.
Yes. And so I got sent there. I was there for 6 or 7 months, and I think it was the best experience in my life. I went there. When I arrived in Moscow literally had no streetlights. Like, it was dark. Had hardly any cars, no Western businesses. It is so different from what it is now. And I got met at the airport and went through all the kind of old-fashioned Russian guards and suspicious things and weird kind of security checks. And then met my boss, who's called Olga, and we got directly onto a 24-hour train to this city called Rostov-on-Don. And it was just blew my mind. I just went into this totally different world, parallel universe. I mean, Eastern Bloc had only just opened up. There were like, this is a slight exaggeration, but I'm going to say literally no shops. Everything was in open marketplaces. Everything that was good about communism, and there were lots of good things about it, had gone. And yet nothing that was good about capitalism had arrived yet. So it was this really dark and grim kind of place that I went into. And yet, when I went to my classes and when I got invited into people's homes, they were so warm and so beautiful and such a different experience compared to what I'd been used to. It was just like going into a different world. I was like mesmerized and fascinated by it. It was a really unique experience.
How did you escape it? And when I say that, I don't mean that sort of flippantly, but you know how sometimes we have those experiences and they touch us and they grab us, and literally you could get pulled down into that and have just become literally a Russian in Rostov-on-Don. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
Because I can see as you're talking, I'm like, this has touched you somewhere in here, you know?
Yeah, no, I could have, yes, maybe left to my own devices. I would have stayed there a lot longer and maybe gone native, whatever you call, become Russified. What happened was, about 3 months into my time there, an Australian woman joined. And we became close because we were the only people in basically the whole city that could speak English. We became close, and then we became closer. And we're married now and have, 2 kids and 25 years later. But that's where we met. And so after a few months kind of working together, I guess the real world was calling and we decided to, make a go of it. And we traveled around together and then eventually settled in Australia.
Where did you travel to together?
We lived in Greece for a while. We lived in Turkey for a while. We lived in Spain. We were actually, I don't know what you call this kind of traveling. We were not like travelers like, a small suitcase, different city every night. We were like, let's go to Turkey for 3 months, or let's go to Greece for 3 months, or let's live in Spain for 6 months. So we did that kind of travel.
And so then what eventually brought you back here? Because sorry to cut you off, mate. I think that change and experiencing that just can become you, can't it? Because it's amazing and wonderful and addictive. And
it was very addictive. We ended up in Turkey and we were teaching English because that was like nowadays there's so many opportunities for young kids. I wish I was born now. The way you can work online and do things, it was really hard going to find work. You have to go and arrive in a city, read newspapers, go and visit people. So we were working in this Turkish English language school, which was really great. And winter was coming and it was getting cold and it was a bit miserable. And she said to me, how about we go, she's from Perth, how about we go to Perth for the summer and then we'll do that for 3 months and then we'll go traveling again. And that was the plan. So we went to Perth and then here we are 25 years later, 2 kids later, still in Australia. I literally thought I was going to Australia for 3 months. And then, I don't know.
And then life.
Life happened. We grew up and we're still here.
I actually first met you in person. So I'd seen you a lot on LinkedIn. You're quite active and posting a lot of stuff. And I knew the name. And then I was in Paris for holidays.
Yeah.
And you just put up a post saying, you know what, I'm going to be in Paris, living there for a few months to grow the business. Reach out if you're about and you want to meet. And I was like, oh, screw it. I'm just going to reach out. I don't know if you even kut who I was at that point.
No, I did know who you were.
Yeah.
I was delighted to hear from you.
Yeah.
I was delighted to hear from anyone. But especially you.
And we had this lovely coffee. I can't remember exactly what I can see where it is. I can see you.
Yeah, it was right next to St. Paul Station.
That's it. Having kind of coffee in Paris. And that struck me because, to say, I'm upping and taking my family to the other side of the world to have this experience. I mean, wonderful and delightful, but terrifying as well, no?
Well, not so much. I mean, my wife and I had really got a lot out of living in different countries. Like I said, we were not big travelers. We were big sort of live in a place for a while and then do day trips. That was our thing. And we really enjoyed living in different countries. And I'm not going to say live like a local, that's not true, but just being in one place for a long time and kind of absorbing it in and learning a lot about it and enjoying that. And before kids, we had traveled a lot together, sort of extended holidays. And we wanted our kids to have a flavor of that early on in their life, something unforgettable to kind of open their minds to just a different world and a different experience. And I'm fortunate enough that, because I run my own business, that I could do that without having to ask too many people. And it was also good for the business. It was at the time when we were trying to expand into the Northern Hemisphere. And so, but the main reason was that we had always wanted our kids to have that experience. And we had wanted to go for a year in 2020, COVID happened. Then we wanted to go for a year in 2021. COVID happened again. So in the end, we had to bring the whole thing down to about 7 months. But we still got to live that life in Paris and have our kids see what it's like to live in a different world. And we sent them to school there, and they really got into a different world. We wanted to have that experience.
Would you do it again?
Oh, definitely. I would, if my children weren't, one's just finished year 12 and another one's going to come up for that. If they weren't in that stage of life, like if we go back 10 years, I would probably do it for longer, maybe go for 2 years. I think it's really wonderful experience for young kids to live in a different place. I think they do need a sense of home. Like, I know a lot of kids who are grown-ups now who've did the expat life, like their parents moved around and they lived in Dubai and then Singapore and then somewhere else. And they feel sort of very disconnected from anywhere in particular, even if they're Australian. But I wanted our kids to feel very much Australian, but have that experience as well.
My wife's favourite expression, just about, I think it's a Thoreau quote or something like that, is that you should give your kids two things. One thing is one is roots, and the other is wings.
Yeah, well, that's much better said than I could have said that, but
yeah, but it's beautiful,
much more succinctly.
But it's I think a lot of people have the dream, but don't necessarily cross the threshold to actually make that a reality. And I don't say that in any way as a criticism, because it's hard. You're in a good job, or you're running your own business, or you're doing something. Yeah. Life is there for you, and the dream is kind of off here, challenging to accept, hard to reach for, a lot of FOMO.
Yeah.
But what happens if it doesn't work out? And not as many people step across that threshold as
And living in a different country for a long period of time is hard.
It is hard.
No matter how nice it is. Like Rostov-on-Don in the 90s and Paris are like as far apart an experience as you can get. And yet I can say both were challenging and wonderful at the same time.
Of the places that you've lived for a period of time, is there one that really opened up to you more easily than another? So I'm thinking like, you move into a big city, and like the communities kind of know each other already. They're already established. And it could be hard to kind of break through that veneer. And then other places you go to, it's just like, oh, you're a local already. You know what I mean?
I know Russia's not the most popular country at the moment. And, it'd be impossible to go there, and I wouldn't go there. But I have to say it was Russia. Russia at the time, like I said, had just come out of, Perestroika. It was 1995. It was a very difficult winter. People were still fearful of the Secret Service, even though it had been disbanded. So if you walk around the streets and everybody looked very grim and very stony-faced and very don't look at me kind of, you could not strike up a conversation in the street or in the public transport. There's just a no-go zone. But as soon as you got invited to someone's home, when you go into a Russian home, because it's cold outside, you have to take off all your clothes. No, just take off your top. And so there's a kind of moment when you're outside their door when you're taking your stuff off and they're grabbing it from you. And literally they sort of physically grab you in, shut the door, and then everything changes. Like the whole mood lightens up, just super open and super curious and really kind and really loving. And that was really special. So I had all of these students, and then I got invited to their houses and their parties and their families and their parents. And it's the same thing. It's like we're just not talking, we're walking there, we're not talking, no one's saying anything. Open the door and you're in a different world. Like with so generous not just with what they've got, which was not very much, but generous with their spirit and their kind of care and concern. So surprisingly, that was the easiest.
As you're talking, like I'm picturing like a Baz Luhrmann film where, like the doors open and it's like The Great Gatsby, like just a raging party inside,
No, like that. Really festival and fun and, all parties that we went to, and some of them were day and some of them were night, were in someone's house. Because there literally were no venues. They were just, or if they were like, you just wouldn't want to go there. I mean, it has completely changed now. It is just so different. But in those days, that was your, if you're a young person, that's your option. You have people over to your house. That's it. It's too cold to go outside, so that's what you do.
And so what put entrepreneurship into your soul?
I think I always had a little bit of a bug. At university, I set up a window cleaning business. I know that sounds very like old-fashioned, and I did that with a friend. And this was my first discovery of what entrepreneurship could be. So we this is going to sound sort of very primitive, but we hired somebody to go through the phone book and call people up and see if they wanted their windows cleaned. And then we hired someone to go and clean the windows. So, and it was all done, pen and paper, take the cash and blah, blah, blah. And that's when I realized, you can actually run a business that doesn't have to be necessarily doing all the work. And that's how you can kind of scale yourself and create opportunities for people and also create opportunities for yourself. If you can just put together the elements. I mean, you're a much better French speaker than I, but I think entrepreneur means kind of the bringing together of things. And so that was my first taste of it. And that was, I'm going to say successful in the fact that we used to make enough money to go to the pub once a week and kind of enjoy it. So that's when I caught the bug. And that kind of stayed with me. And when I started sort of real work, my first real job was, because I studied marketing, my first real job was, I was officially called a lecturer, but I think I was more of a teacher. I was teaching first-year international students marketing at Swinburne. So they were doing the university curriculum, but I was teaching them in smaller classes. And I really enjoyed that. And then I got seconded into the international office, and then that's when my whole international career took off, and I ended up at RMIT, and I started at the bottom and worked up to be the director of marketing and admissions. And the bits that I loved about it was creating something new and doing something different. And the bits that I didn't like about it was kind of business as usual and, the politics and the inertia. And I just sort of thought about myself. I think my personality is more suited to higher risk, bringing things together, trying to do something different, innovating. It suits my personality type more. And I noticed that because I was part of starting a lot of initiatives at RMIT, and I really enjoyed the first year. And then second year, I was like, oh God, are we doing this again? Like, when it became business as usual, I just sort of lost interest. So I figured, I think I'm more cut out for the entrepreneur's journey.
And that kind of makes consulting a good choice, doesn't it? Because you always have something new on the board. I mean, I know Edified now has some nice recurring, very interesting projects that it does and longitudinal work, but there's always something a little bit new and different in that too, isn't there? Even in that kind of work.
Yeah, well, I think Edified, I hope, has been like a little home for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial spirit. So yes, we do bespoke work, but the majority of work we do, products and services that we've created in that entrepreneurial spirit, where we're thinking about what's the problem, is there a way we could solve a problem at scale, is there elements that already exist that we could bring together to deliver really great value and do it in a new and innovative way. And so we've done that many times. There's like half a dozen things, you could say products, you could say services that we've created. So that's the thing I've loved most about Edified, apart from the wonderful people who are there, who are all aces, is that we've kept that spirit of that flavour of innovation and the flavour of entrepreneurship while still running a stable business.
What else have you done? Because Edified's not been your only...
No.
What do they call it? At bat, I think is what the Americans say. Have you heard that before? At bat.
No, what does that mean?
Listeners, please forgive this digression. In baseball, when you go to bat, if you hit the ball and you get a base, you basically have a score. And so every batter has a score between 0 and 1, like a percentage of how many times they hit the ball, home runs, whatever.
Yeah.
And so if you've got a score of like 0.4 between 0 and 1, 0.4, you're like all-time great. Because, 4 times out of 10, you hit a run.
Right.
And sorry, anyone listening who knows baseball is going to...
So you're saying how many swings have I had that haven't hit the ball?
No, but the whole thing is like 0.4. Okay, you are only hitting like 4 times out of 10. But the key isn't about how many times you hit the ball. It's about how many times you step up at bat. Because the more you swing, the more likely you are to hit one. And in fact, you can become all-time great just by spending a lot of time at bat.
Yes.
So I've heard the same thing in entrepreneurship talk is like,
yes,
it's fine to fail.
There's been a lot of swings of
a lot of swings.
A lot of swings. Yeah. I don't want to list them out. And many of them have failed. I saw something really interesting, a talk by Roger Federer, and he was saying he's won 80% of his games, but only 54% of sets. So He basically says, I've lost almost half of the points that I've played, and yet I have managed to win 80% of the games. And so, the kind of message is you've got to keep on swinging, you've got to keep on trying, and failure is a necessary part of success. It is not like the opposite of success. It is a step. I always think of every failure as a golden rung on the ladder to success. And I've built quite a big ladder with lots of rungs on it.
Does it still hurt though? I mean,
Yes.
You've had heaps of experience, like wins, and from what you're saying, some strikeouts too.
Yeah.
They still hurt.
Yes. It's sort of okay with that. Like, I don't like it at the time, but I think it's good. It heightens the successes when they happen, and it makes you sort of take responsibility for failure. Like, I think it's good if it hurts,
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
but I also think you need the mental ability to just put it behind you. Let it hurt, be okay with the hurt, and then go, okay, we're done. Next one, next swing. If you constantly going back to the past and talking, in your mind, talking about failures, I think that's really difficult. So my personal thing is I like to really like have a really bad day and be really upset about it so that I'm done. And then I can move on and just move on to the next thing.
What do you like during that day?
Oh, probably unbearable.
What do the team say? They're just like, Mark's having a day. It's one of those days.
Yeah, no.
I'm making an assumption. Is it a thing, or is it just kind of, is this you internally?
Me internally.
Yeah, being like,
yes. And then maybe stay in bed all day. And then, so.
How do you build the muscle though? So, and I'm curious, maybe your take on that for somebody who's listening, who's thinking, oh, but how do you do that? Like, it's like when you public speak and a public speaker makes it look glorious and easy, and really inside they're like twisted and gnarled up and they're stressed and everything about it. But they make it look easy. And somebody listening or watching this might be like, but like, how do you make that look easy? So what's your tip for getting started to strengthen that muscle?
Well, I think firstly is understanding that it's not easy. Any overnight success has at least a year, 5 years, 10 years of hard work behind it, and that took it to get there. So understanding that's the case. I think it's well worth de-risking things for yourself. I mean, some people are just totally risk averse. Risk positive. They're happy to take risks. They don't mind. They'll swing 1,000 times. They're impervious to the effects of that on them. They just don't feel it. I'm not saying they don't need empathy, but they don't feel as deeply as others. But I think if you want to start a new venture, you want to de-risk it as much as you can. Best way that I know to do that is to find clients before you try to build the business. Rather than building it and hoping they will come, is to show something to clients and get their commitment, get their buy-in, get them to be part of the build of the concept. Like, bring them in really early for co-creation, because the product is for them. Whatever you've got, product or service, it's for somebody. So get those somebodies into your development process. Spend more time on that than anything else, so that then when you have the product, you've developed it so that it meets their needs. You've also got 10 clients who are ready to buy because they feel really invested in it. That makes it easier, because otherwise you can spend 6 months in development, you quit your job, you're working on something, and then you get there and nobody wants it. And that's really hard.
And so how do you get people involved though? So I love the approach, right? But I can imagine it's not easy to necessarily go to someone and say, oh, look, hey, first it's challenging to just reach out to people and say, I've got this idea. That's a very uncomfortable thing to do in many cases. But then to actually invite people into that process, is that just about having the right personal relationships or reputation, or is it really just sort of reaching out to as many people as possible and trying to find a handful of key supporters?
Well, I think if you've done the thinking, you want to find something for a starving market. If you're selling terrible hot dogs midday in the street, you probably won't do well. If you're selling terrible hot dogs at 2 a.m. outside a pub, you probably do well. So you need to find something. You need to find a pain point, find a starving market. But I have found that's the easiest bit. People are surprisingly willing to co-create. And if you look at all of the, let's call them products that Edified runs, like the inquiry tracker, the agent perceptions tracker, the work that we do in pricing, the work we do international office appraisals, we do admissions appraisals, we do a lot of work with automating admissions, all of those things that had initial innovators that we brought in who are the buyers and asked for their feedback before we've actually built the product. And I have found that's easy. People are surprisingly generous with their time and really, really want to help you. And I don't think they're just being nice. I think it's because if you found a pain point and then someone says, I reckon I can solve that pain point, but I need your help like to get it solved. If it's a pain point for them, they'll help you.
Nice. So, in fact, interestingly, I think you gave me some version of that when we met in Melbourne, and I was asking you about this new business that I'm running. And so I've tried to incorporate that. And to be honest, it's been great. Like, it's been really good to be able to talk to people and show things to people and get their feedback as we're going. And now we're at this point, like, now we need to step across the threshold and be like, okay, now's the time for the check.
Yeah, money time.
Yeah, money time. So, so this is a new thing for me. I mean, not selling or entrepreneurship or the like, but converting. And so, excuse me, listeners, I'm being very self-indulgent here, but I'm hoping to demonstrate the process because I think it's a great method. How do you then take it to the next step? Is that just sort of saying we're ready? You've been part of this journey. How would you then convert that into real business, so to speak?
I think crossing that threshold is that some people, many people, most people find it really, really difficult to change the conversation from we're just chatting and you're helping us out to it's go time. Like, I now want you to pay. And it's a similar, I don't know if this is a perfect analogy, but it's a bit like asking someone out for a date. You're chatting, you blah, 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 but at some stage you're actually asking them, do you want to go out on a date? And that's really hard for people to do. And I think part of it is practice, but I also think part of it is asking for something really specific rather than vague. And also giving a client some options. So it's not just a yes or no. It is, I've got 3 options for you. Now instead of if you make a binary ask, do you want to buy this or not? They've got 2 options, yes or no.
Yeah.
If you make I don't know what the word is for quadrinary, I don't know. If you give someone 4 options, one is no, then there's these 3 other yeses.
Yeah.
It's much easier. Now there's 4 things to divide their attention to. It's much easier for them to say yes to one of those 3.
Yeah.
Because you've given them a range of, price and a range of participation and a range of options. And I think the human mind interprets that as now you've got a 75% chance of a yes as opposed to a 50% chance. So you just increased your odds.
It looks more intuitive, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I think it also, there is, a psychological phenomena called primacy, or fixing, which is the thing that people see first is what fixes in their mind about value, for example. So if they just see yes or no and they don't know what the option is, it's hard for them to commit. And I'll go back to the dating analogy. If you say to someone, would you like to go out with me? That is pretty vague. And by the way, I met my wife before I even dated anyone. I didn't even know what dating was like. But if you say to someone, I booked tickets to this movie on Saturday night and I'd really like to take you, that's really specific. And I think that's a kind of a way to approach things. Asking for something specific and giving people options. Like, I'd like to go out with you. I've booked these tickets for Saturday night, or we could go for lunch at whatever. Now there's a range. It's much easier for them to say yes.
How did you ask your wife for a date?
Well, I didn't need to.
No, it just happened.
Well, we were
This is awesome.
living in the same flat together.
Yeah, right, of course.
So we're with each other 24 hours a day. So it wasn't like go out on a date. It was more like, I don't know, let's stay home and cook up some more boiled cabbage together.
I just love how our conversation's gone from like entrepreneurship, sales techniques to like boiling cabbage in Russia. It's brilliant.
That's really true. That's the first meal I made there.
Is that right?
Yes.
Does she still talk about it?
Yeah, it was boiled cabbage. That doesn't sound so great. It was a cabbage soup and it had nice spices. It was nice.
That's awesome. I'm going to just jump back to that kind of technique thing for a moment because, I mean, we sort of led into that talking about entrepreneurship and bringing people along, but presumably that's something that anyone doing some sort of project could essentially take that similar sort of technique in order to generate buy-in and maximise the chances that somebody's going to opt in.
Yes, and I think it's called entrepreneurship. That's where you're behaving like an entrepreneur inside your organisation and you're trying to get buy-in. And for most people working in our sector, in the international sector, I mean, that is almost the most important part of the job. I always thought when I was working in universities, I'm actually spending 10% of my time doing the actual job, which was basically recruiting students. That's the job. And 90% of my time trying to get everybody else on board and get their support. So I think there's a big place for entrepreneurial leadership, like working out how to improve things and then getting people to buy in, which is like getting people to buy. It's the same thing. You're just trying to get the support. There's no money changing hands. So I think it's a really important skill. How do you develop it? I think you just have to try. I know when it comes to actual sales, there are some people who will never feel confident crossing that threshold from, we've been talking, it's been great, you've been helping me, to, okay, it's buy time. They just sort of leave it hanging, and some people will. And when they've done it a few times, they realize it's not that big a deal.
You know, what I'm finding right now, because literally that's kind of where we are right now, and I find it's what's helped me and this is literally last couple of weeks, what's helped me has been just saying to myself, I actually want to get good at this. Like, I want to be able to be comfortable having that conversation. So being in my own mind thinking, okay, this is a skill that I really want to get good at. And that way, every time I'm having that conversation, and as you say, Mark, like it can feel a bit awkward. You're having a good old chat with someone and you're like, okay, now I need to transition to talking business, to making an ask or booking a meeting or whatever. And I don't know if I've nailed that yet, but before I make the call, or bring it in, I'm thinking to myself, this is what I'm here for. I'm here to learn this.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm shit at it right now, but I want to get good at it. And that actually gives me a bit of courage, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you just got to go for it. And I think one important thing is to always leave a conversation so that it could be started again.
That's nice. I like that.
A no is no for now, right? But you always want the person to feel like it would feel okay if they saw you again. It's not like they turned you down for a date. They just want to come to your movie that weekend. There's still a yes is still a possibility. And I always want our prospective clients to feel really comfortable. You never want our team to be the people that you see coming down the corridor and go, oh, shit, got to go away. You want to be the people who, they want to see you. They may not want what you have now. They don't know what you're going to come up with in the future. They don't know what their problem's going to be. So to have that conversation in a way that you could always go back with something new, it's always open, it's not final. I think that's really important because it's a small business. Industry. It's a small industry.
What daunts you?
I think what we have created in Edified, and I use we because it's very much just not me. The people who've joined Edified are all amazing. I think they're brilliant. Not just brilliant minds, but they're brilliant personalities. They're great at working with people. They know how to put people at ease. And they know how to help people working in complex organizations to get really great results in a very personal way. So that at the end of it, it wasn't just a transaction. It was business and they paid for it, but it also felt like they had a confidant and a friend is not the right word, but a mentor and a support. And we didn't just write them a report. The report is a conduit to getting a great result. What daunts me is how to take that and double it, triple it, quadruple it, and give 5 times as many institutions the same experience. That is a challenge because I just never want to lose that.
The magic spark. Right?
Magic spark, that feeling that when you work with someone from Edified, you're the most important person in the room. I never want that to change. So that daunts me, how to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because some of it's person, like the person, the human being that just has that skill set. And some of it's the training, I suppose, too.
Yes.
Like the training, the company values and the approach and all of that sort of thing. Yeah, it's a balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah, and the best way we've thought of doing it is by creating, innovating, scalable services. Like our tracker, like the work we do in pricing, like the work we do with agent perceptions. It is work that it is personal insights for that institution.
Yeah.
But we can roll it out 100 times, 200 times, 500 times, but it still feels personal because the reports they get are about them. They're not about what's happening in Canada or what's happening in India. They're about what's happening in their organization. Yeah. So that's our attempt to scale it without it feeling impersonal.
And I guess that brings people to you, right? I like to think of it as like the orbit and the gravity, is that once you're doing something good, it's like hopefully that starts to draw the right people to you because they feel it, like they feel the tug.
Yeah.
And they see what you're working on and they like it.
Yes.
And then that leads to work and business and the like.
Yeah, and where possible, where it suits the projects, we always bring in international students. With the inquiry tracker, it is real international students lodging the queries. With the agent tracker, it is real agents who are answering the questions, like they're the ones who know. So we're constantly trying to think of things that stitch up the great three of the industry, which is institutions, agents, and students, and make sure that what we do works for all three parties.
Where else in the world would you love to go and live for a period of time?
South America. Yeah, I'd love to live in Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, any of those countries. I've always said that's my secondary fascination. Like if Russia didn't work out for me, I was heading to Colombia.
And why? Why those places?
I've always had a bit of a penchant for Spanish culture and Spanish language. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. A bit there's an origin story for Russia. I can trace it back to Animal Farm. I can't trace that one back. I've just always really loved Spanish history. I'm a bit of a history nerd, so I've read the whole thing, and so that's where I'd love to go.
You've said that a couple of times that I can't trace it back where that came from. I find that fascinating. I love people who do that. To me, it's like it's this kind of cerebral process where you're like, why did I get interested in Russia? And then you sort of think about it, and it evades you, and then at some point you're like, Animal Farm. And South America. I wonder where that came from. Because there's an origin for everything, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with the international education, I know really clearly where I got it from, and that was when I was in Russia. So that was my first job teaching English, and I found the experience of teaching them and them learning and watching them flourish after that, I was really fascinated by that. And so when I can't say came back to Australia, like I said, I was born here but brought up in New Zealand, I really wanted to stay in that, and I actually didn't even really know that it was a world of international students. The only thing that was in my mind is my dad, sort of the philosopher, and when I was quite young, he had said, I've got this amazing idea for world peace, and what we should do is all planes have got spare seats. We should tell the airlines they have to give the spare seats to students, and we should send students all over the world, and they should do massive exchange programs so that everyone in the world understands every other country. That's my genius. And that stuck in my mind as well. So when I started work in Australia and I was teaching international students, and then I kind of realized, sort of opened the door, there's an international office. What's that all about? Oh my God. They're like they're doing exactly what my dad was talking about.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I was hooked. I was just like, I need to be in this.
Unfortunately, we're out of time because and I'm putting a little underline there, your dad, the philosopher. Next time we sit down, Mark, for a podcast, that's where I want to take off.
Sure.
Because it's funny that we hit on that right at the end. I'm just like, I can see that, right? It's like your dad's obviously made a mark on you in some way because there's the philosopher in you. I can see it ticking in your brain.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to explore that next time you join me on Global Horizons. It's been a great pleasure for me. Thanks for joining me, Mark Pettitt.
Thanks, Rob.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Global Horizons podcast, consider subscribing to our newsletter. Search for Global Horizons podcast and then just pop in your email address, and that way you will never miss out on all of the critical international education news that you need to stay up to date with. This episode has been produced on Garigal land in Sydney. Our video and audio editor is Len Zamora, and I'm your host, Rob Malicki. Have an awesome day. See you in the next episode.